EHAS Club presents Stories to Create podcast, where the tale of our guest takes you back, way back to where the story first got created. Now, to help create this new story, here is your host, Cornell Bunting.
Yes. Welcome to another episode of Stories to Create podcast right here at EAS Club. I'm your host, Cornell Bunting. I am so excited today because, listen, we got our own, you know what? I'm not even going to throw him out there like that. I was going to say, you guys know the art world goes, when you go to certain museum or gallery and you see a piece and it just speaks to you. When I tell you this brother, he does pieces that when you see them, it grabs you and it's like, okay, I have a message for you somewhere in here. Listen, you know what? Without further ado, help me welcome Mr. Dani Papa.
Hey, thank you, Cornell. Thank you for
That's
having
okay.
me. I
Yeah, man,
appreciate you.
definitely, man. Hey, man, listen, this is amazing, bro. When I saw your work, bro, I'm like, yo, I got to bring you on the show at some point.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. Yeah, it was my final thesis exhibition, and it was a culmination of a lot of research and study. But I'm glad that the aesthetics were just enjoyed by all.
I love it. Okay, so this show, man, we like to treat our guests. We take them back to the early years. The early years where the story first got created and what that looked like, with you, Dani, like, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I mean, native born Floridian.
Okay.
But I lived in all different kind of parts of the state. So originally born and raised on the East Coast of Florida.
Okay.
Fort Lauderdale. And
Fort
Miami.
Lauderdale. All right.
You kind of see that Miami aesthetic. You look at the word.
Yeah.
It's like very bold and saturated. So it screams Miami. So I feel like those are my influences from when I was young, just staring at a lot of beautiful, bold and saturated colors on the buildings.
I love it.
The people, everything. But moved across over the seas to to Israel. Spent about a year and a half there, which was amazing.
Okay.
And brought our family back to the Panhandle of Florida.
Okay.
Spent about 4 years there. So we just hop, skipped, and jumped. And
so in the hop and skip, school life. What was school life like?
So originally, I was in private school most of my life. My parents owned and operated two marinas over in the East Coast for the majority of the 90s and early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And we moved to Israel to start a boating school there. And then my dad got a contract back in the States. So we just kept hopping around, really enjoying life, honestly. I got to explore so much at a young age. From swimming in the Red Sea at 14. What? Stepping on my first sea urchin. That was kind of painful, actually. But it was an amazing adventure, really. And then coming back to the States, finishing up high school, starting college, and just making my way down to Southwest Florida here. And it's been an amazing journey.
So we got to put a pause for a minute because you got the listeners here, and you dropped the Red Sea. We can't just drop the Red Sea and just leave it like that. Like, because the Red Sea is a big deal, man. Like, the book that everyone goes crazy for talks about the Red Sea a little bit as well. So it's real.
Yeah, it's salty too. And apparently it's beautiful. So we waking up, we were camping on the Red Sea at the furthest point in Israel, in a city called Eilat, which is beautiful. Okay. And waking up, looking at the Jordan Mountains across the sea, and then to the right we can see kind of the silhouettes of the pyramids, and then to the left we can see the busyness of the city. And I was like, oh, this is such a really cool dynamic. Right. But I feel like all these influences and experiences in my life really culminated to my artwork, really, because it shows in my pattern making and my colors and textiles, because I've been shown many cultures throughout my life already.
So would you say that you grab the crave for the art at a very young age then?
Yeah. I mean, ever since I was a kid, even with comic books. Yeah. I mean, I just finished writing my 77-page thesis paper, which Jesus, man. So in that thesis paper that I just submitted yesterday, actually, I'm very, very thankful. But I kind of talked about my early influences, and I even cited comic books as major influences because they're very strong and influential in their own right by their creations. If you look back in the original creations of some of those comic books, they were inspired by Greek mythology and classical tales. Much like myself, I'm half Greek and half Israeli, and Greek mythology has just always been a part of my studies from when I was in private school to moving to Israel and being shown to all these beautiful museums and galleries. It's very, very layered.
Yeah, I like that. Now, with comic books coming up, because I got into that a little bit. Who would you say was one of your favorite
characters? Oof. I want to say probably, I'm going to say more like a group, actually. That was more of the group that kind of got me into comic books, which was the X-Men, the early X-Men series.
So you were on the Marvel.
I was in that Marvel realm. Actually, I picked up my first comic book when we were taking our first trip our first flight to Israel.
Yeah.
My dad looked at me and said, "Hey, son, your Game Boy might die." And he's like, "Maybe you should get a book or a magazine to keep you company because it's a 14-hour, flight."
Yeah.
So I walked into the gift shop and I saw a couple comic books there, and, there were X-Men comic books, and I picked them up, and I must have read those things back to cover to cover multiple times throughout those 14 hours, and so much so that I just started doodling and sketching at a very young age, and then still doodling and sketching at this age as well.
That's
only
awesome.
On a different level. But doodles,
wow,
it's all starts with the mark.
So before we go deeper, I gotta put you on the spot. If X-Men characters, right? Wolverine, go up against Cyclone, who you think would take that fight?
Oof, Wolverine, man.
Ooh.
Wholeheartedly. You kidding me? No contest.
What do you say? He's dodging that when what's his name take his glasses off
that optic beam.
Oh my goodness!
But even stuff like that, that very concentric optic beam of Cyclops's of power, in an illustrative manner. I look at that as a block of color. I look at the disparity and the circles around it that make it look like frenetic energy. Ooh. And I kind of put that in my own work. You can see that in my three graces, where I used circles and shapes, indicative of, again, my influences from comic books. It even spans from simple things like that. Inspiration is literally in every mark, in every shape.
Yeah, I like that. Now, some of your work, the way you've displayed an image of an artist or an object, when you bring someone in and you're doing a piece on that person, what's going through your mind? How do you categorize that individual? What am I doing right now?
That's good thing that's a good question, actually, because we can look again at my three graces. This model here, Anaya, I've used her. She's been my muse for the past year and a half now. And she just exudes this beauty, grace, elegance, poise, but she also has this fierceness behind her. So I look at the character. So again, with the three graces in Greek mythology, they talk about the epitome of youth, grace, virtue, and whatnot. So again, I look at the model, I look at the character, and I find qualities that kind of they share in contra or in common with each other. And I guess reproduce my own iteration of these mythological characters, but they're also portraits of the model herself. Because I'm not just choosing some random Joe Schmo. But then also it's kind of like another layer of myself as well, because each one of these Greek myths that I create, they're all a reflection of me. So the three graces are all about youth, beauty, charm, virtue, and they love to dance, they love to bounce and everything, and that's just me. I love all of those qualities. And same thing with any of my other Greek myth works, like my Medusa.
The Medusa, man.
This one, man.
The Medusa is serious.
She was shown in Art Basel last year. Actually.
Yeah. So, for anyone that is curious, how long did it even take you to put this together?
So I'll say, I mean, from concept to creation, about 10 weeks.
Okay.
But about maybe 2 weeks of actual, like, you know, like nonstop work.
Mm-hmm.
But I did everything from the casting, again, using my model Anaya,
right?
Casting of her face and her chest and her hands, because I have a background in sculpture and casting and mold making.
Okay.
So I made my own molds and everything. And I kept popping out faces and hands and chests all over my studio. It looked like a broken statuary mausoleum or whatever.
Right.
But this kind of showcases all my loves of art and all my practices, from my drawing and my mark making to my pattern making.
Right.
Also my illustrative marks, and also my nod to sculpture, because my undergraduate degree was in sculpture, and this whole master's thesis that I've been working on for 4 years has been nothing but drawing and painting. So this has been a nice bridge of the two. It's kind of creating me a nice arsenal to kind of use to my own will.
Right. Now, because you have, the one artist that you use quite a bit, what is the longest session that you've ever find yourself where, and I don't know if the artists get irritated, like, I'm naked for too long or whatever that look like.
No, it's such an interesting process, because you start taking nude drawing classes as an artist in college, and they're usually elderly people or young people or whatnot, and they're just very academic, and there's nothing too dynamic about it. It's just all about learning how to draw the forms. But for me, I really love kind of creating my own sense of my realm.
Okay.
So I bring color changing lights.
Okay.
I have different music. Sometimes I bring props, like with my Demeter photo shoot with my model Shanoon. I just had all these fake flowers, and I just dumped them all. Just hit the mic. I just dumped them all over her. And it was just taking pictures as she was just untangling herself, and just allowing the model to be very natural in her own environment, or their environment. But it's a very beautiful process, and I send all the photos to them. They usually print them out. They're like, "Oh, I have them hanging in my wall because they're so cool."
That's awesome.
But it's a fun process. But ever since college, taking those nude classes where you're drawing the form, but kind of taking my own sense of fun and camaraderie, and making people see what I see.
I love that, man. Now, obviously, people got to be comfortable in their own skin, and Shanu give me that vibe that she's really comfortable. Even being nude, being captured like that. But have you ever had any artists where you would work with that? They're like, they want to do it, but they're not necessarily there yet. Like,
yeah. I've had models, like I did a couple with my series on. Here, it's actually my Pygmalion series. This was a couple, boyfriend and girlfriend. And at first, she was just totally fine being totally nude, but of course he was just a little hesitant, so he was wearing underwear the whole time. And then of course towards the middle of the shoot, he's like, "Nah, I feel comfortable," and then just took off the drawers and was like, "Oh, this was actually pretty cool." It had the lights, it was very relaxing. And it's cool because I actually, at that photo shoot, and I usually come to their places and set up a little installations. But for specifically this one, I looked in their house. I was like, "Wow, I like your paintings. Can we take them down and put them behind you so I can create a really cool backdrop?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." So we set up all the paintings and everything. And when the colorful lights hit their bodies, it creates these cast shadows. And then from there, I take those abstractions and I use those cast shadows as canvases. And I use all my doodles and dots and line work and everything, and I just kind of fill those spaces. And it just becomes a beautiful amalgamation of color and line.
Oh, that's amazing, man. So, in the midst of you, discovering your talent in this beautiful world that you already have going here, how was your parents feeling on you taking that path to wanting to do something like this?
Oh man, they're fully supportive. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, We had an art room. You know, it was the only room that you can walk in, and there was just paint all over the place, and you know, but in an organized manner. It's not like it was, you know, chaotic and everything. But paint, you know, clay, plaster, literally drawing, everything. It was just beautiful. We could just kind of express ourselves. And then also, you know, in my practices as an artist, I started doing these sketchbooks, just out of habit, just to kind of pour myself back into me and trying to find like an origin story to my practices, really. Right. And I would hop around different places around Naples and just sit there at coffee shops and restaurants and bars.
Get ideas.
And I would just sketch.
Just sketch. Wow.
Sometimes I would just literally just sit there in my own realm and not even pay attention to the world and just keep pouring out like 14 pages.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And then sometimes I would look up and then be like, oh my God, this person's here. Let me just sketch them real quick. And I'm like, oh, here. But awesome. It's all relative, really. It all comes together from everything, from my learned practices, from my experiences, from my youth, to my education as now a master.
Yeah, I love it. We have a few different artists that their pieces have gone just outrageously priced when it comes to when people look at the value of art. And, you know, so there's certain art that just kind of take precedence a little bit for different individual. If you're working on one of your favorite piece and you just need to get away for a minute, just need to take a break, but your only option is to go look at someone else's piece. Which of these older artists would you go and check out their work?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm going to say three different artists, actually, for three different reasons.
Okay.
So if I would want to return back to a mood of serenity, I would look to Kandinsky.
Ooh, okay.
You know, because I'm a synesthetic artist myself. I do a lot of live painting performances. You'll catch me around town at galas and fundraisers, just showing up with a blank canvas, have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just painting, going crazy, and then it's a beautiful, you know, piece of work at the very end. But Kandinsky was very synesthetic in the way that he listened, you know, auditorily to music and just had his kind of, you know, hand be that conduit between music and art. And it was such a beautiful thing. So I would listen to Kandinsky if I wanted to, or look at Kandinsky if I wanted to relax. If I would want to feel inspired, I'd probably look at Basquiat's work.
Come on. Okay.
Some of my favorite work. I love that raw mark making. You know, you can look at that grittiness where you can see like that oil stick hitting that canvas and that discharge of that line segment. You're like, ooh, I love that grit.
Right.
But yeah, that's inspiring because it's such a simple action, but it has such a powerful reaction. And I love that. Yeah. And then if I wanted to just, I guess, just feel like myself again, or feel forward thinking, I would look at Gustav Klimt.
Gustav, okay.
One of my favorite artists, even though he's long gone.
Long gone.
But, his influence is beautiful. Just the way that he uses shapes very simplistically, but in a pattern that is very influential of the time, but it transcends time.
I love it.
Shapes are beautiful. It's gorgeous with the gold. Oh, love the work.
That's amazing, man. When you hear jazz music, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a specific jazz player, but just hearing the instrument, for you, without even putting anything on paper, what is running through your mind?
Ooh, I'm probably thinking like a very long willow stick.
Okay.
Nice long charcoal stick.
Yeah.
Very loose arm.
Okay.
And just very casually.
All right.
Following that motion.
I love that. So this is a thing about the waves, and now someone said to me, there's something about the ocean waves and the sound it makes the movement to that, is that something that is easy to follow? Like if you had a canvas, you're on the beach, you set it up, and you're listening to the waves, and it's rushing in a way that is aggressive for a good 30 minutes. Could you follow that?
Oh, yeah. You get into that rhythm to where you're working in that same cadence of that ebb and flow. I worked on with my 4 seasons. I personified the 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. But with summer, I literally brought that portrait, which was about 4 feet tall and about 3 feet wide, on a piece of wood that was reclaimed or recycled. And I was dragging that all the way down, Seagate Beach, and just plopping it down there, and then just drawing nonstop, and the waves were hitting it, and people were walking by like, "What is this guy doing?" But just trying to get into that flow, trying to epitomize summer by getting out of the studio and actually feel that sun on my back as I'm drawing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is beautiful right there. The era we're in right now, between different artists that have tried and have, thrown in the towel because they just feel like it's not taking them anywhere. What do you say to those individuals?
It's all about practice, really. Yeah. I mean, it's just really about practice. Yeah. I mean, even when I was a teacher, I would tell my students that these are my 3 E's, explore, experiment, and express. Yeah. And, same thing, with practice. You just got to continue to explore, experiment, and express yourself. And practice takes in so many forms, really. You know, if you want to get good at soccer, you got to practice. Right. Same thing if you want to, learn how to play the violin. Same thing with art. You got to put in the hours. You got to put in the work. With this sketchbook series that I created, I made a pact with myself when I started graduate school. One of my first assignments was to create 100 drawings a week, and I was like, wow. That is a very, very interesting task. Yeah. So I was like, what am I going to draw? I'm like, let me just sit here and let me get some inspiration and whatnot. Yeah. And I would sit in Mercado in narrative. Shout out Caleb, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. But I would sit there and just draw nonstop, and that's where it started. And I made a pact with myself to have 30 sketchbooks by the time I turned 30. Wow. And I turned 30, and I have 30 sketchbooks here, and they're all filled, over 3,000 pages. Oh, my goodness. And they're just all as uniquely expressive as each other.
That is amazing, man.
Yeah.
You go you go at it. Like when you're imagining stuff, you just run with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. And I got to tell you, man, my hat's off to you for just how you express your feeling, like, when you put a lot of this stuff on paper. Now, for a lot of individuals that creates and maybe doing something similar to what you're doing, they would be like, okay, so what kind of pencil does he use?
Ooh, that is a good question. Whatever's available. Whatever. You forget I was a teacher first, so we became very thrifty.
There's no specifics.
No, well, I mean, I work with anything and everything. Some of the best paint sometimes is some of the cheapest paint. Yeah. Some of the best materials are some of the cheapest materials, and vice versa too. I love using gilding paint. Yeah. But that is hell of expensive of a bottle or a little jar. I really appreciate, just utilizing whatever I can.
So let me ask you, because right now, at this current time, one of the most expensive piece out there was done by Leonardo da Vinci. Mm. How you feel about his work?
Leonardo da Vinci?
Yeah.
Ooh, love it. The guy epitomized sketchbooks. You see this? This is like, what are these? These are my Leonardo da Vinci sketchbooks.
So his piece is Salvator Mundi. Mm. I think that's his most expensive piece.
Work.
Salvator Mundi is for 450 million or something like that.
I'm not familiar with that one, but
Right, you gotta check it out.
Yeah, is it well for 450 million? I guess it's pretty impressive.
Well, it's how some would say, because I feel like a lot of stuff that was done artwork wise, that was done from the Bible, from where the Bible was telling certain stories, and even for you that have like somewhat of a culture back in, is it Egypt? Israel.
But close though. Egypt was very beautiful to look at.
Yeah. A lot of the sculptures that was done like back in the early years there, it just seemed like they've put so much into the art.
Yeah, and actually, I went so I'm half Israeli and also half Greek.
Okay.
But growing up, we really, had no real connections with the Greek side of my family. But after doing this thesis, I really, really wanted to get in touch with that connection. So my sister and I flew off to Greece. My 3 graces were shown there and in Athens, and a digital showcase for future stars, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
But we got to connect with Greek family and looking at all the statuary over there, which was so amazing. My sister and I, who is an amazing artist, shout out to my sister Karina. She makes beautiful garments out of recyclable materials, the most amazing creative mind and spirit.
She really is.
She's very beautiful light. But we went to Greece together, and best moment, sitting on top of the Parthenon, not on top of the Parthenon, but on top of the Acropolis, looking at the Parthenon. And we were just sitting there sketching, and it was just so much fun. And I love setting up little time lapses just to kind of document that. And of course, we get yelled at by the tour guide. What are you documenting? But no, it was a beautiful, beautiful time. Get to look at all the pattern work and see how not only the ancient Greeks, but also contemporary Greeks are utilizing their culture and history to make their mark on the world. And I saw a lot of interesting transformations of what pattern work used to be for the Greeks and now how it is modernized. So looking at my work, I guess these doodles and nonsensical markings and everything is my nod to Greek pattern work. And it's just repetitiously thrown throughout everything that I do, from these sketchbook pages to my large narrative works. My Pantheon piece is 26 feet long, and that was That was a 10-month labor. I feel like I gave birth.
So I'm going to paint a picture for you, and I want you to tell me if it's something that would be doable. So you're in London. You're on the big red, the 2-stairs bus.
Okay.
You have an hour. You're sitting in there for an hour with a canvas.
Ooh, on the second floor?
On the second floor.
Yeah.
Could you complete a task in that 1 hour?
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. 1 hour. I'll show you what I can do in 3 hours. So like with me, I do these live painting performances.
Wow.
And they start, and they're huge too. This one was done at Food and Thought too. This one was done at, downtown for Naples Fashion Week. And so I do all these different live painting events at different fundraisers and galas. But I show up with these blank canvases.
Right.
People always ask, do you know what you're painting?
Right.
And I said, in a sense, yes, but also no.
Right.
It's just making marks and having fun. And I love when people get to watch the beginning process to the final product.
Right.
And they're always so amazed. They're like, wow, you did that so quickly.
Yeah.
But with 1 hour, I'll take that challenge.
Yeah.
Find me a double-decker bus. Let's do it. And here in Florida.
Yeah. We might have to do that. Get the cameras out and just go big.
Let's go to London, guys.
Oh my goodness, that would be amazing. One of the things now with culture, individuals understanding the different cultures. When someone go and look at a piece like that you've done at a show, they don't necessarily know what to expect. What could you tell them the possibilities could look like?
Well, I would tell them to get ready to be drawn in and stare for a very, very long time. My work, I feel like the aesthetics draw people in to view the whole, I guess, concept. But I would tell them to get ready because I'm a storyteller. Yeah. And regardless if they understand what my version of the narrative is, at least they'll come back or take away some sort of narrative or story that is universally understood or felt.
Right.
You know, if you look back at my Medusa, some of my best moments during Art Basel when I was showcasing her was standing in the back and watching people crab walk and stop and look at art, you know, Medusa, and she's 8 feet tall. So people are like, holy crap. Yeah. And there's mirrors on her, and, you know, there's plaster casts that are sticking out. So it just really, really grabs your attention. Yeah. And then I would, you know, see these people who are frozen. And I'm like, oh. I would casually approach them and like, oh, do you guys realize that you are now frozen like a statue because Medusa now has frozen you like a statue? Yes. So I feel like, you know, they're like, oh my God. So it's that essence of the story. Then they want to know more about the narrative and whatnot. Right. So that story really drags them in. I'm a storyteller. I'm a myth maker. I really enjoy taking ancient narratives and kind of repurposing them to kind of make into reflections of my life and journey.
I love it. I love it. If someone buys Medusa tomorrow, would you go make another one?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I actually have, during my open reception, one of the patrons who came asked for something similar, but only horizontal. So the sky's the limit.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. So you're working on one. So you would possibly have Medusa somewhat lying down then?
Yeah. I mean, she's. I love working, you know, in a vertical format. I just feel like it incites growth when you look at a piece, and it just kind of adds to that divinity when you're looking at the work. But horizontally, you know, for me, let's make it giant and expanse.
Yeah,
vast.
I was trying to think of the movie that had Medusa in it, but she had a lot of.
Was it the Clash of the Titans?
Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
That one looks quite interesting. Would you ever create something looking like that?
Well, it's so funny. When I actually, posted this final image on social media, I had some friends who reached out. They're like, "Oh my God, have you seen Clash of the Titans? You know, this version looks like a more beautiful version."
A more beautiful version.
Of what was produced, and I looked at the original source that they were talking about. I was like, well, actually, that version is quite beautiful too. You know?
Right. Like that. Well, because it has all the snakes and stuff. I think for individuals, you know, and because you don't look like that artist that would even venture into that world of the snakes and all that stuff.
Well, with the symbolic nature of that,
yeah.
Well, I think I approached that more in a research part, because even, you know, I have snakes on Medusa, but you know, I love Anaya's afro to draw. It's so large, but I stuck 6 snakes kind of poking out of her afro. And, you know, with research, I did a lot of research into Medusa's myth, and I found out that ethnographically, if you look at the myth, she's actually tethered to Ethiopian origins. So that's what originally had me, you know, seek out someone who had some African roots. And then that's when I met Anaya. And, you know, working with, you know, that part of the myth, you know, showcased an aspect of research that people were not familiar with. They're like, oh, interesting. And then even more layered on top of that, you know, you look at the mountain where Medusa was supposedly, you know, residing in Ethiopia. There's a known snake species that only exists in that mountain. So that inspired me. I'm like, oh, okay, let's use that snake species as, you know, her snakes that are popping out as a nice little nod to the geographic area. But so, you know, for me, in the symbolic nature, again, is more of a researched aspect, because that just kind of incites my heart. But, you know, for a biblical mythological aspect, it's, you know, just there to be a part of, I guess, the character.
If you were stuck to only using one set of material for a year and your option was oil or water, which one would you go with?
Like as paint?
Yes.
Ooh, water. Water-based, wholeheartedly. Yeah, I mean, like, I do these live painting performances, you know, in this Florida humidity. So I'll be working, and, you know, God bless people who are like, oh, it's so beautiful. I'm like, oh my God, the layers could not dry. Because the humidity is just, like, you know, crazy here. But yeah, I think it's
yeah. All right. I like that right there. The world of rock, or not rock and roll, but like the punk rock. Which would you choose to do a complex piece?
Punk rock. I'm gonna have to give a shout out to the early 2000s with Green Day.
Green Day. There you
I mean,
go.
come on, guys.
Yeah. I like Green Day.
Why not?
Day. They got a nice. They got some nice pieces right there.
Yeah.
But you could work to some Green Day.
Oh, I mean, I work to any and all music.
Yeah.
You'll you catch me in my studio. I have friends who'll come over and they'll just have me blasting some EDM.
Yeah.
And then they'll come over the next time and I'm just listening to this very beautiful melody of like orchestral music or opera.
Yeah.
Or I love listening to jazz, especially late at night in the studio and with my color changing lights on in the studio. I'm just sitting there just listening and just allowing the music, the lights to kind of influence my marks. So music throughout the whole spectrum. I guess country is not a realm that I've tapped into further, but
right. I love that. Bird or cat? Which one would you choose?
Bird or cat? Ooh, cat.
Cat.
Totally. Yeah, people who know me
Not
don't
do nothing with a bird.
Yeah, people who know me know I don't mess with birds.
We ain't doing it.
When I was a little kid, I got and this was a joke in my classroom for the longest time for some of my students who would take me over and over again. Loved, that like teasing me about it. So when I was a little kid, I got, how in Busch Gardens they have the peacocks.
Yeah.
Just roaming around.
Right.
Well, apparently the favorite color of that a peacock loves is yellow because it reminds them of their food, corn or whatnot.
Right.
So me wearing yellow flip-flops in the 90s was not a vibe. So I have a scar on my foot because of course that peacock went and just like
my goodness,
grabbed my foot. But ever since I told that story to some random student during a class or whatever, that has just transcended time throughout the classroom, and kids would just make peacock jokes or draw peacocks and this and that, and it was kind of funny. But even utilizing like that symbol of the peacock in my pantheon, my version of Hera is holding this very beautiful like peacock feather. It's like a big amalgamation of a shape, really, of a form. But I kind of abstracted the peacock feathers with just using the eyes. But then again, it's another nod to Gustav Klimt. So it's just like, it's everything that's just layered, I love it.
Right.
From my personal, injustices as a kid by getting attacked by a peacock to now like including it in thesis work with research and study. So it's beautiful. Everything works together. That is amazing right there, man.
What is one project that you want to work on that you haven't started working on it?
Ooh. That is a good question. Well, I mean, since working in graduate school, I've produced this Greek myth series, and there's 10 works in the series, and really, really great work. You can check out my website, DaniPapa.com, to check out all the works.
Yes.
But since now that I've graduated, I feel like something I want to venture off into is some still life.
Okay.
I really want to kind of make my own version of contemporary still lifes. And have fun with them and make them funky.
Well, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool right there, man. Now, for individuals that want to follow Dani, where can they go to follow you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram. I'm very, very active on Instagram. Dani.papa.art is the handle.
Okay.
Also on my website, you can check me out, DaniPapa.com. And I'm working on a YouTube channel as well.
I love that. So, for the mass, because for a lot of people that seen your work right now, they feel your biggest work is Medusa. What's the next big project similar to Medusa or bigger?
Ooh, well, since, the reception with Medusa has been so positive, I want to keep exploring this synthesizing, the sculpture and the drawing and the painting and kind of creating these really intricate works, because it's been perceived so beautifully, and I really want to, keep exploring that bridge, whether it's also through Greek mythology, because I have so many other additional Greek myths that I want to kind of interpret, or, abstract painting or whatnot. But, I feel like art is a very expansive field or spectrum that encompasses so many different things. Even me as an artist, I consider myself, an artist, but also an educator, a mentor, a community leader, a philanthropist. And I feel like that's what makes an artist complex and contemporary nowadays, to make them multifaceted.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, man. That's a beautiful thing, man. So, for the creative minds out there, and you guys are all welcome. I've gotten an opportunity to listen to a very talented artist here, Dani Papa. It's a beautiful thing. What would you say to those creative minds that don't feel as motivated to step out and just create?
Make a mark in a sketchbook every day.
Yeah.
It can be as mundane and nonsensical as trying to capture your brother very quickly for about 2 seconds, or it could be something as, abstract to making marks. Literally make a mark. Keep a small sketchbook. I used to tell my students, keep a sketchbook in your car. Anytime you want to sit and grab your phone, grab a sketchbook instead. Just keep your hand busy.
Right. I love that. I love that, man. Listen, guys, there you have it. The man himself, a very colorful, decorative artist. It's amazing. Look at that. It's beautiful.
Thanks, man.
Definitely go and check out his website. Is DaniPapa.com. Look at that. That's that simple, people. It's a beautiful thing. Dani Papa, man, it was really great having you on the show today.
This was amazing, man.
Yeah, man, this is beautiful. There you guys have it. Until our next episode, where we have another decorative, colorful guest, as Dani, right here at EOS Club.
Well, there you have it. The host came, the guest came, and the story was created. Thank you to our sponsors, EHAS Inc., Karis Capital, and the Cornell Bunting LLC brand. Go check out the books, courses, and materials at www.cornellbunting.com. Thank you again for listening to the show. Check back again to hear another tale from another unique guest right here at EHAS Club.